I think the Lord is leading us through every step, and you can see it when that kind of thing happens. This is workshop number 9. I'm going to try to get you out of here quickly today for a couple reasons. There's people that are hungry, want lunch. There's football games coming on, and I have a concert to go to this afternoon. So I'm going to get through this presentation because we want to get in your hands the things that were in your mailbox, a questionnaire about the layout of the connector building. Because in about the next week or by next Sunday, we'd like to have your thoughts back on that so we can give some marching orders to the architect, and he can advance the plans to the stage they need to be to go for the approvals we need to get. So if you want to go to the next slide, Jeff. This is your committee again, just as a reminder of the people that have been working with this for about 6 years now to develop a master plan, go through the plan and the building of the pavilion, and now through the site improvements that we've been working through. I throw their names up there, so if you have questions about things, you can ask them, and they can bring you up to date on the project. Next. This is just a snapshot. I'm not going to read all this again, but the different times we've been out here to get your input. We've had 61 official committee meetings. That group I just showed you has been spending a lot of time doing the planning for this effort. Okay, Jeff. This is the site plan that you've all seen out in the hallway. The red area is the connector building we talk about. The brown area is our future new sanctuary, and the yellow area is the extension of the multi-purpose room. Those are much later phases, but the red area, the piece that connects this building and the north building, a 2-story addition so we can connect both levels and have an elevator, is the area that we're going to be talking about today. The phases we've gone through in our project and the way we laid it out in the master plan with the city was the first phase was our pavilion. We did that with a quick site plan, but then we had to go into the major site plan for the rest of the phases. We're about 90% done on the parking lots, the driveways, and all the site drainage. The next part, as I just mentioned, will be to expand the hospitality area and new classrooms and storage rooms in that connector building. That gives us the elevator and the connection, but also gives us some of the other space needs that we identified about a year or so ago. After that, construct a new sanctuary. Phase 4 is removing the house and constructing an equipment garage. But I want to say that we don't have to do these things in order, and we're working now to hopefully next year move that house to another lot and get it off the site then. So we'll do phase 4, since it doesn't cost us anything, early, and regrade that site and have a little more open space to use for church functions. Phase 5 will be to renovate this building where we're sitting right now into classrooms and offices and more storage rooms as they're needed. Relocate the kitchen. We'd like to move it over to the north building once we have more classroom space, and then we would like to expand the multi-purpose room. And last is construct additional parking. Is one thing we hope we don't ever have to do. We have now a permanent arrangement by making a driveway connection with the K office building north of us to let us always use their parking. There's about 70 spaces up there, and we're hoping that allows us to not to have to extend the parking lot that's shown on our master plan. Like I said before, the phases do not have to go in that order. If we decide that we have the room to move the kitchen before we renovate this building, for example, we could do that. But those are in the future when we have resources to do those projects. Okay. So phase 1, just say that we're getting it done this year. We had hoped to have it done by the end of September, but we had a lot of rain in July and August when the contractor was working down in the ground, moving dirt, and rain and dirt don't mix too well when you're doing construction, so we had to give him into November. But the good thing is that the bulk of it will be done. The one thing that will not be done, that we need to do by city regulations, is get this landscaping done. We have a landscaping plan, but we deferred that to next year because our committee felt, a lot of the members felt that planning in the fall was the best, and with the contractor still working here, we couldn't do that. So we will appeal to the city to give us that extension to next fall to make sure that we can get that in. I don't think that'll be a problem. Over the winter, I will be asking the congregation to lend us your expertise in the landscape plan. We have to come up with a good plan for the islands out here. We have a general plan that we use to get the city approvals for phase 1. We need to look that over and make sure that we have the right trees and things like that, but we're looking for something that looks very nice but is low maintenance, because we want it to be we want it to be that. So we're going to call on you that are master gardeners or have landscape architect degrees or anything else to volunteer for us, for a committee over the winter to go over those plans with us and come up with their best ideas. Yeah, she will be there. So will John Tullis. Okay, next. Then the phase 2 is the connector building. We are plowing through the approval processes to go next year with that building if we have the resources to do that. And we'll have to just make a decision, or the session will have to make a decision on that after the first of the year. But the goal was to get that built during the advance campaign. If we don't have the financial resources at that point, we can defer it to the following year and wait and see how much we really do collect from the advance campaign. But those numbers will have to be looked at hard early next year when we're ready to pull the trigger on whether we go with the connector building or just do the landscaping next year. Okay? So again, the red part, connector building, that's what we're here to talk about today. If you want to go on to the next slide. This is the exterior, what it will look like from McKee Road when we have a 2-story connection between our 2 buildings. Okay, Jeff. This is the plan view of the first floor. All of you have that in your mailboxes. You have these plans and you have a questionnaire like this. The questionnaire simply, you say, it looks good the way it is, go forward. Or you like the layout generally, but there's one thing you'd like us to modify, so tell us what that is. Or you don't like it at all and you'd like us to redesign the space in a different way, tell us that as well. We'd like to have that in by next Sunday so that we, like I say, can sit down with the architect and go over with what the thoughts are from the congregation as well. But let me see if I can, okay. This is the hall right outside. Here's the doors from the sanctuary. And so if you go out and turn right, here's our front door, is right about here. The office is over here. So the connector building is in between the area where we are and the north building. So it's much wider. We will have a few columns in the center here. The front doors will be moved out, and there'll be a little more space in between the doors, which I know would be helpful to folks, but to meet standard, they have to be a little wider. So we will build this portion out in the front, going out to about the end of the multi-purpose room. You can see here's the wall for that, the gymnasium. So there'll be a lot more space in the hospitality area. The guest center will be moved over against the stairwell. And we'll do something in this area for the guest center, catch both hallways. An elevator would be next to that, between the first and second floor. We're looking at a possibility of an elevator without an equipment room. This area was reserved for equipment room. If we don't have an equipment room, we have a nice closet in this area we can use for storage. The coffee bar would be in this area. Last time we showed it, it was back in the corner here. We're trying to move it out, and maybe we can even move it out a little bit more. But the process that we have observed that seems to move a lot of people through the coffee bar area quicker, is to have the area that's near the sink and the supplies be the area where you dispense the coffee, and then have your sort of fixins bar, the wheeled carts we have with sugar and creamer and tea bags and hot water for teas, maybe located around these columns where people can come up, get their cup of coffee, and move off to take the time to open and put the stuff you want in your coffee. We saw that operate in one church, and it works very, very efficiently and quickly if that fixing is not on the same place where you're getting the coffee. This space would be, try to keep this open. We thought about also putting some maybe tables about the height of this lectern around to be able, in this area, to be able to have people stand around and place to set their coffee and things like that, but have them as not fixed in the floor so that we could move them maybe back into this closet when we want to use this open space for other things. It was thought that when we have dinners in here, it might be good to have this space available to put the food out and that type of thing. So you want this to be flexible for other uses as much as possible. Our initial thought was to put the mailboxes over here so we can keep that space available for that. There's some thought in the long term of putting it maybe in a corridor we'll have here next to the sanctuary where the mailboxes would be even out of the hospitality area, but that's down the road. Right now we thought here would be the mailboxes. There's also another thought of putting the bookshelves in this area and moving the books that are in our library down into this area so that they're visible and people know what we have if they would like to check them out and read them. Tucked away upstairs now, I don't think there's too many people that even know what we have up there. And then have maybe some other seating in this area too so that this can be a usable space even during the week when we don't have services. Those are some of the thoughts right now. In this area here is the sprinkler riser. That's where the pipes come in that supply the fire suppression system that we have in the north building, and we'll have to have it in this connector building as well. So that's got to stay. We thought it'd be good to have a closet back here where you have the refrigerator and the supplies for the coffee bar be able to be used in this area. And then I said long term, we're looking at the kitchen over in this area, moving this area, and there might be some opportunity to connect the coffee bar with the kitchen at that point, and there might be some reason to do that, but we don't need to do that right now because we're a long way from moving the kitchen. But at least a supply cabinet with a door and a refrigerator that you have, I could think for the Grace for Dover dinners and things like that, can be in here. We could even put a couple in there. There's enough room. To make room for this in our existing corridor here, we have to move a couple things. We have to move our main electrical panel is right here for the entire north building. That's got to get moved. We're looking at moving it over into this area of this classroom. It would be in a closet, so it's not going to take a lot of space. It's just that there's a lot of wires to move. There's conduits that come up through the concrete foundation and they have to get moved. The other thing is the entire workshop for building and grounds is right in here. Our thought was to take the smallest of the classrooms over here, convert that to a building and grounds room with a door to the outside. Building and grounds may not need all that space, but that gives us some opportunity to increase these cabinets, which we'll need to do by the time we do the multi-purpose room because we'll need to store more tables and chairs. But in any case, they need to be moved out of the way over to this location and then gain about 4 more classrooms upstairs. So the transition's tough, just as it was with the parking lot. So as we do the building, we're going to have to think about that a lot. But that's the first floor idea. Do you want to go to the next one, Jeff? On the second floor, here's the stairway that comes up to the second floor right now. And this is the old choir room or the large classroom we have now up there. And this is the offices where Kathy Seiler and Bill Quartz are. The idea on the second floor when we finish would be to make Kathy's office and Bill's office closet or storage space. They will not have windows, so we felt that that's a better use to put our expanded storage space over here and move their offices in this location where they can have a window to the outside. They'll each have the storage closets off of them as well. The elevator would come up the second floor in this location, which would be useful for the clients that they need to meet with, right at the top of the elevator, the office is right there. On the other side of the hallway would be one large classroom or dividers that would make it as many as 3 small classrooms, depending on what our needs are. And then one large classroom / conference room for meetings like the session or deacons or whatever business meetings need to be conducted during the week, but would also provide space for a large class on Sundays. Yes.
On one large classroom that you can divide up right down hall in there,
Yeah.
is that, how long is that in terms of, say, is that as long as the sanctuary is right here? Is it that long, or do you know?
I can't, is there a dimension on there, Jim? Can you see that?
Just for perspective, you know. That's 32 feet? Wide or long?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I can't read the dimensions from here, but it might be on that drawing.
It's written on there.
Okay.
If I read it.
Okay.
So it's in your box.
There was also, when we went through the questionnaires before, a request for a room to be set aside for the men's fellowship group, the Ironworks, and it was suggested we use, once we get all these rooms here, that maybe this room could be set aside for that purpose. If that's a good spot or not a good spot for that, and there's another use for it, that's something you can tell us in your comments.
It's actually about 50-something feet long.
About 50 feet? So, it's fairly big. Okay. The other change would be in the north building, space that Rick has in the youth room right now in this area would need to have a corridor cut through this end. And this is the room where the library is right now and where the facilities manager's office is. That could get moved down to the building and grounds room, and that would be available for a small classroom as well if we move the books down and we clear this room out. So there's some options as we transition into the plan. Yes.
Is there going to be handicapped accessible bathroom on the second floor?
What'd you say, Karen? Okay.
A handicapped accessible bathroom on the second floor at all? As it looks right now, the only bathrooms are in the north room, and those are definitely north building, those are not handicapped accessible.
There's nothing in this plan to add any bathrooms. Can you back up one slide, Jeff? The thought was, once when the kitchen transition, all of this area becomes available to make bathrooms, make larger restrooms, but that's down the line. There was no plans right now to do anything. There are no bathrooms being added in the addition we're adding on. Now, if that's something you feel we need sooner, certainly make that comment, and we can look at, maybe there's some conversion we can do in where the existing bathrooms are. I don't know, but that's something we'll need to look at. Okay? The next phase is with the building design. We have the needs assessment. We did that some time ago. The design development we want to complete this fall, which is what this meeting's part of, to get your feedback on the thinking that's been put forth so far. Then late in the year, we have to go back, even though we have a master plan with the city, we have to go back with a sort of a mini site plan to show which pieces we're going to build next. I've already started the process to get that going, so we'd like to get that at the end of the year here. Apply for the city's sign off on the site plan. That should be pretty straightforward since we just went through them last year with the master plan. Then early next year, complete our design, apply for a building permit. I said the first part of Phase 4, moving the blue house off the property, we have a plan to do that. Then in the spring, we'd have to move the utilities, the electrical panel for the north building. And I single that out because that in itself is a major disruption to our operation. We will have no power whatsoever in that north building for a period of time. I don't know how many weeks that'll be. But ideally, if you're just scheduling the time frame, it will be in the summer, in July and August, when you maybe can shut the building down. But if we actually go with the connector building next year, we're going to have to find a time in the spring to shut the north building down, which is a complicating factor. Complete the landscaping by the fall of 2018, and then construct the connector building if we're blessed with the resources to go next year, or if we have to wait till advance contributions are done at the end of 2018 and do it in 2019, it would be done then. But even if we waited till 2019, we could move the electrical panel next summer. Of course, we do the landscaping next fall, move building and grounds to the classroom next summer. There's other things we can certainly do if we have to wait for the funding to come forth. So, okay. Next one. Just a quick financial report from the committee. This is what we've spent over the last 6 years. And this is not just all from advance. This is what was provided in budgets prior to the advance as well as advance. And I've covered this each time, so just bring you up to date. We did the initial 4,400 on initial mapping, and then tests for 14,000 plus, engineering and surveying 66,000, permits almost 30,000. That shocked us. That was a lot more than we ever anticipated. That's just government fees. The architecture design, we've spent about 38,000 so far. The construction so far, what we've spent out here is about $405,000. I just paid a couple big bills on that one. And then construction oversight is about $38,000. So almost $600,000 over the last 6 years. Jeff? This was our budget when going into advance, and this is some of the costs I said on the other sheet that we've spent were in the years leading up to advance. Well, we thought about $100,000 for architecture and engineering, the site construction about $600,000, and about $800,000 for the connector building. Next slide. And so if you look at the balance right now, we brought in $98,900 at January 1st of 2016. The income we've received from advance just from January 1st has been $536,000. We've had other contributions up and above advance that people have given, $23,000. Our expenses about $545,000 total from that time period. So we have a balance in that fund of $113,000 right now. The next one. You can't read this. This is just to show you that from the beginning of advance up here, we did a financial plan to just monitor our cash flow. This column was our anticipated monthly income from advance. This is our total costs and what we anticipated our outflow would be for construction, architecture design, engineering. At the bottom, we have what we've spent to date, what our projected expenses were for each of those lines, and I'm sorry, that's the estimate here, and then what it looks like our projected expenses are going to be right now. If you could read that bottom line, it would show you that our projection is we're going to be on target with the engineering, the architecture, and the construction management costs. The construction costs could be about $100,000 more than we initially anticipated. And right now our projection is that advance is not going to be able to come up with to the $1 million that was a forecast that we would be getting from advance. But we've got, a little less than half of that time still to go, so we're going to see what that does. And of course, some of that has been offset by this column, which is other income that has come in, the people I gave above advance. These columns over here represent borrowing, depending on when we would go with the building, if we needed to borrow any money, how much that would be and how much the debt service would be. But this is just to show you that we are monitoring that very closely, and that's why I say we'll wait till after the first of the year before we make a recommendation to session based on where we are on income and our expenses. The good news is we'll get through all that we've contracted for without having to take any debt. And then as a group, we can decide how fast we want to move with the next piece. So next slide. So any questions? Go one more, Jeff. I think it's the site plans on there, yeah. So that's the overall site plan. The red part is what we're building right now. Are there any general questions here? We do have committee members that will be out in the hall with the close-up plans, the big sheet of plans that we gave you a small copy of. And they can go over, if you have specific questions or want to look at specific details, they will go over that with you. You can note down on these sheets, we have plenty of these around, you got them in your mailbox and all, your thoughts that you would like the committee to consider as we go back and meet. And we'll be meeting here this week on November 1st. And so we'll be able to take your comments right away. And those of you that want to think about it a little bit and get them in next Sunday, that's fine too. We'll have that available. So are there any general questions? Nick?
It's not a $64,000 question. I know I'm sure most of the congregation are interested and concerned. Are we looking for, you mentioned what, 90% completion on the paved road?
It's about where you are now, yeah.
Have we got to commit that maybe the next month, next 2 months, that we will have this finished?
We're going to finish it before winter, yeah. This next month, we're going to get it paved out.
That's a real concern.
Yeah, and it's taken longer than we had hoped. The weather was certainly delayed the contractor. His contract with us called for him to be done around the end of September, as I said. But in his defense, in the spring, we gave him very little access to our site because we had so many activities going on here. We told him he could have complete use of the site in July and August. Then we found we wanted to make him help us accommodate Mission Dover and some other things. And of course, that's when the main rain hit. Once Mission Dover was done, we really got hit with the rain. And so we had to let him extend some time for that. But overall, I think it's coming together pretty well. And we think we have a really good contractor. We've gotten some extras that he's done for us. We've had to pay him extra because if you read the frequently asked questions I gave you, one of the things we had done to save, we thought we were going to save a lot of money, was to leave a lot of the blacktop that we had out in our parking lot and just simply overlay that. Looking at the previous plans that were done back in the original building, we thought that was going to be strong enough, and if we just overlaid it, that it would provide us the strength we needed for the long term to have a good parking lot. When we actually got into opening up the parking lot, we found that much of it was not even built close to what the plans showed. And in fact, in this southern end of it, I know George Walton used to always drag me out there to look at it because he said, something's going on here, Ray, this is cracking up and it shouldn't be this bad out here. And when we got to that section, we had to pull out an old tree stump and a huge root mat. If you want to see it, it's over north of the north building. That was right under the pavement. It's no wonder it was cracking up all the time. So pulling that out, putting stone back in to give us a good base has cost us extra money, but it's going to give us a really good product that people like George did when he was here, and other people that have that responsibility in the future won't have to worry about that parking lot patching it all the time and overlaying it. But those kind of things add on to the time as well. But if we have to go a couple extra months to get a really good product, I think we can. And we're pretty much out of the mud now. You know, as I said, we got to pave just before this rain, so at least we can come in, access the site to a paved area, walk on paved area into the building now. So the worst is past us. Any other general questions right now? Like I said, the committee will be there in the connector hallway if you have some specific things you want to go over. Make your comments on that form, put it in my mailbox, Ray Harbison, out here, or just drop it off in the church office and the church staff can put it in my mailbox for me. Okay, thank you all for coming out again for a rainy morning.